Come blue and white and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Carlisle United, the team that's on the ball. Carlisle United, the team for one and all. You're looking good and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you
Hello everyone, we're back. It's episode 31, the Brunton Bugle, your not one-stop shop for Carlisle United news and views. From Paul Bowertine to Chris Baldstone and George O'Garney to Alan O'Brien, we've got it covered. This is episode 31 and today we're not going to be covering much really because of circumstances, but we'll be looking at some of your questions and suggested discussion topics, and we're going to be giving you a few news updates on what ex-Carlisle United players have been getting up to. I'm joined on this episode, as ever, by one of my regular co-hosts, and today it's Dan McLennan. I was going to ask you how it's going, Dan, but it's a bit of a depressing day, really, isn't it? It's not going great for Blues fans, is it?
No. Obviously, the news came through this afternoon of after the second round of COVID tests this week that our next 3 games are postponed, which obviously points to an increase in positive tests, and obviously we're going to discuss that in a little bit more detail in a minute.
Yeah, it's just an unfortunate set of circumstances, isn't it? I'm not sure it's one individual player or anything like that. I think some people are jumping to the conclusion of that. I think you've just got to look at the figures for Carlisle as a city, and they're horrendous at the moment, aren't they? They're just moving up that table and not in the right sort of table we're moving up, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. So yeah, basically what we're going to do today, obviously we haven't got any matches to review because the Orient game was called off. We haven't got any matches to preview because the Mansfield game's off. We'll cover that in a sec.
You forgot the Harrogate shambles again.
Of course, the Harrogate game, yep. We haven't got anything to cover there. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a news roundup. We'll do the X-Files at the end, but we're also going to answer some of your questions that you've submitted on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group and on Twitter. We've got an absolute pile of them to get through. I think some of them we might cover in not as much detail, but some we'll try and go into a bit today, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, well, let's get straight into it then, Dan. So the news roundup, I mean, we've mentioned it already there, but the next 3 games are postponed after the COVID outbreak in the United squad. So that news broke early today that the COVID-19 outbreak in the United squad, which was limited to 4 players, wasn't it, I think, until the other day. At the start of the week, that's got even worse, which means the Blues have had to call off the next 3 games in League 2.
Yeah, I was looking at Chris Beech's comments this morning prior to this afternoon's news, and of the 4 original ones, it said that 3 of them have tested positive, but were basically asymptomatic, felt absolutely fine, and were basically training at home, just cracking on. The youngest was, it says, it's a lad who's just broken into the first team at 18. He's actually ill. We're going to do the decent thing. We're not going to speculate on the names. No. You can sort of work out who it, you can work it out, but it's not for us to say. And if the players don't want their names out there, that's completely their business. But the young lad who has got it is actually ill with it, so obviously our best wishes go to him.
Absolutely.
And hope he makes a speedy recovery. Yep. But it's quite interesting. Chris Beech said, obviously this was prior, that he has 4 players with it, all from different areas, 3 from Carlisle, 1 from the North East, different age ranges, live different circumstances. 1 lives with the parents, 1's on their own in a flat, 1's on their own, doesn't say where, could be anywhere, and the other lives with family. So it's a proper mixed bunch, and it's, as you've said, I don't think it's really there's been any misbehaviour, because we're one of the clubs that seem to have been excellent throughout. I think it's just a matter of circumstance. Carlisle is one of the worst places in the country, and unfortunately it's eventually succumbed to our squad.
Yeah, so obviously United put a statement out confirming that after the latest round of tests this morning, with further positive tests, the need for most of the squad to self-isolate as well on top of that. They were going to be unable to fulfil the upcoming fixtures against Mansfield, Leyton Orient and Forest Green. It's interesting, the statement does mention that there'll be a full EFL investigation into the circumstances, but I think that's just standard.
I think that's just sort of standard protocol, isn't it? And I did notice Grimsby got fined at a few days ago for this when they called some games off.
That was back in September, wasn't it? It was a while ago.
There was actually a bit, when they've done the investigation, obviously their ex-manager now, he's Paul Tisdale, wasn't it?
Ian Holloway.
No, Holloway, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I'm mixing my manager. Yeah, Ian Holloway actually told the investigation that as part of training they were having team darts matches in the clubhouse, which was completely against the mixing protocols.
Mad,
I mean, I can't see Chris Beach having had our players all playing Monopoly round the table, you know.
Beach seems to take it very, very seriously, doesn't he? I think because of his personal circumstances especially.
Yeah, he's quite aware, isn't he? He's been travelling to games on his own in his car, hasn't he? And
stuff like that. Yeah. So, including the Harrogate game, United now have 4 games to fit in to an already packed schedule. And I worked this out earlier, didn't I? You actually corrected me because it was even worse than I thought. So, based on the fact that the EFL seems to be requiring teams to fit the games in as soon as possible, and what United's next available midweek slots are.
And this is obviously assuming the other teams can fit into these weeks.
Exactly that. United will potentially play an incredible 16 games in 55 days. That was pretty much a game every 3.5 days. Eight consecutive Tuesday, Saturday night runs. From the Newport game on the 26th of January to Stevenage on the 20th of March.
And that finishes on the 20th, doesn't it? We don't have a midweek game on the 23rd, do we?
No, I think the next 2 weeks after that there isn't any. Then it goes.
But then you're into the Easter weeks, where everyone plays Saturday, Friday, Monday, Saturday.
Yeah.
So you can't really squeeze Tuesday games in those 2 weeks, can you? So
unless you shifted the game to a Saturday and the one to the midweek.
Yeah, you would have to do your Friday, Monday to Saturday, Tuesday to fit another Tuesday in, wouldn't you?
Something like that. It's. I can't get how they're not going to extend the season. In fact, you know what? Let's leave that until, because there's a few questions about this. In the fans' questions, so we won't go any further than that because it's something I think we need to sort of chat about, isn't it? Really, because there's a real issue heading the EFL's way in the next few weeks. I think it's fair to say. So let's get some positive news then, Dan. So Ofrande Zanzala signs for the Blues. So one of the poorest kept transfer secrets at Brunton Park in a while, thanks to his very recognisable personalised number plate being spotted all the way down Warwick Road.
Parked very badly outside the player's house.
That was a little bit of a giveaway, wasn't it? So it's confirmed this week that Ofrande Ozzy Zanzala has signed a deal United until the end of the season. So the 23-year-old forward linked up with the Blues after being recently released early from his contract with Crewe Alexandra. The Congo-born player began his career at Derby County in their academy, and he had loan spells with Stevenage, Chester and Accrington Stanley whilst with the Rams. He then signed permanently with Aki, spent 2 seasons at the club, and he featured quite heavily in their side that won the League 2 title in 2019. He then moved to Gresty Road in the summer, but he failed to pin down regular pace prior to his departure. Seems a pretty decent signing, this, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, judging from his social media since he's moved, I don't think he's been happy with his spell at Crewe. It hasn't really happened for him. I think he's got a point to prove, seems to be the message he's giving. And he's got the experience of a promotion with Accrington, where he was well thought of, So, it's a good signing. I mean, it's only to the end of the season, but there was no mention of any review. But it wouldn't surprise if there was one somewhere.
It's one of those ones. If he does well, then he'll get his deal extended by if possible. If not, he'll move on somewhere else. But there you go. Yeah. So it's a quick remove to replace Riley, isn't it? Really. He's been described as a pretty good character by Blues boss Beach. I think that seems to be something that he's really keen on, isn't he? Making sure you get good characters in the building as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Beach is part of the sort of the M62 corridor, isn't he? Where everybody in football knows everybody, and I'm pretty sure he knows people at Accrington and Crewe that he's done his research on him.
And I think it helps as well, actually, in terms of that he knows quite a few of our squad already, doesn't he? Because I think he knows Nick Anderton. I think he played with him for a while.
I think he played
Callum Guy.
with Callum Guy. Yeah.
I think he said he played with against Aaron Hayden quite a bit, I think, in the Midlands, possibly.
Yeah.
Interesting one he did say was that one of his best friends in football, apparently, is Kwame Thomas.
Yeah, who we had on trial under Stephen Presley.
His upbringing's really interesting, isn't it? I was reading about this. He fled Congo during the Second Congo Civil War at the age of just 2 with his family. They lived in Austria for 6 years before moving to the UK, so you can't say he's had a pampered upbringing, can you? I think it's fair to say.
No, not at all.
There you go. Well, good luck to Ozzy, and hopefully we'll get to see him in action soon. It's going to be amazing, because of this gap in games. It's going to be a 24-day gap between our game against Walsall and our game against Newport.
Here's a quick question for you. Do you know what his middle names are?
Go on. I didn't read these, but go on.
Offrande, Jollinold, Serge, Zanzala.
That's terrific. Absolutely terrific, guys. And he was born in, was it Brazzaville or something like that, I think it is?
Brazzaville, yeah.
Excellent.
And he's while he little bit of Congo knowledge, he's the first Congolese-born player we've had, but he's not the first of Congolese descent, because former Manchester United loanee Chani Ekamanjeni was, although born in Belgium, he was of Congolese descent. And the other link was Mick Wadsworth managed Congo for a bit.
Of course he did. It's interesting that, because I think you tend to find with a lot of these Congo players, although they were born there, and you think, they must have a decent chance of playing for the national team. Understandably, they're not particularly keen to go back and play there, so it's one of those ones, isn't it? Okay, let's go into the next one. Another bit of transfer news. I think we all saw this one coming. Ethan Walker, recalled by Preston North End. I think we sort of touched on it, didn't we, in recent episodes, that with the expanded benches for championship sides, being able to name 9 players on the bench, I think it was always inevitable, really, wasn't it, that eventually there was a decent chance he was going to get recalled by Preston, wasn't there? Even though he only played 5 games, was he impressed? And they clearly want to fill the spaces, don't they?
Yeah, there was an article around Christmas from the Preston manager sort of saying, we've got injuries, COVID, bigger bench, there's a chance that we may need him, so... he looked half decent in his few appearances, and best of luck to the lad, I mean, to be honest, I don't think he would have probably got much of a game, because...
No, because the squad's settled now, isn't it, really?
Yeah, he tended to come on and play on the left-hand side. At the moment, we usually have Patrick starting. We've got Toure to come off the bench, and we've got Dickinson back at fitness. Yeah,
it's one of those ones.
We're sort of well stocked up in the wide areas.
Yeah, he was on the bench for the Lily Whites FA Cup defeat against Wickham, but wasn't brought on as they lost 4-1 to the Chairboys. Next up, Dan, another Player of the Month award nomination. It's Callum Guy. He's up for 2 awards for December. Not really a big surprise for Blue fans, this, although it's nice to see him getting some outside recognition finally. So he's up for, I say he's up for, one of them's actually been confirmed this morning, so he hasn't got it sadly. But he's up for the PFA award, which is still, the voting's still open, I think, till the weekend.
I think the PFA one's the more important one, isn't it?
Yeah. This confused me, because the 2 ones he's up for are the PFA award and the Give Me Sport award. I always thought Give Me Sport was the PFA one. I always thought that Give Me Sport was something to do with the PFA website or something.
Who knows?
I remember back in the day, but I've never heard of the Give Me Sport one before, so it's a bit of an unusual one. But yeah, he's up for the PFA one. If you basically, we put the links up on our Twitter feed, haven't we, on the Cumbrians Net one and the Brunton Bugle one. So get yourself on there, get the votes in, and let's get Callum the recognition he deserves for his excellent season he's been having with us.
Well, I'm going to step in here. I hope he doesn't win it, because I don't want people to know about him.
I know.
Sadly, I think we're past that, because he's regularly topping the tables for ball retention and interceptions. I think it's fairly well known that he's an integral part of our team.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, next up, following viewing figures continue to rise. We got a little bit of insight in this, didn't we, at the CUSG meeting the other night, Dan? So the club have provided the latest update on follow figures. It's actually on the official website, this stuff, for United. And the Blues, with the Blues in such good form, it's not really a surprise, is it, that fans are desperate to catch the lads in action. So just a few of the stats that come out from this. Over 18,000 paid streams in total after 21 games. Total income earned after 21 games is 138,000. It's a decent amount of that, to be fair, all things considered. Second in League 2 for home paid streams per game, and 6th for away paid streams this season. I'm going to guess top is going to be Bolton, is it, you'd think?
Bolton or Bradford, you would think.
I'd heard Bradford aren't doing as well on it as you'd expect.
Yeah, but they're also having a poor season, aren't they?
Yeah, probably doesn't help them. New home record of 1,118 for the last home game against Bolton, and that was even with 2,000 fans at the game. New away record of 1,318 for the last away game at Walsall, and the average income per home and away game continues to rise. Obviously, we're going to have a little gap now.
Just to give a little sort of thing to these numbers, we've been told that some teams are in the low hundreds, and one team was literally 50 streams for one game.
Yeah, I mean,
which is incredible, really.
Some of the smaller clubs just aren't going to have fans that are that interested, though, are they? That's the thing.
No,
it's just the way it is. It's. I
mean, I still know people who have no interest in watching on a stream. They either listen to the radio or go to the match. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some fans who will only watch the home ones. They're not interested in watching the aways. Even though the club does get a benefit from those sales, they just won't watch it. It's a strange one, isn't it? So yeah, it's looking good on the old iFollow thing. It was an interesting discussion, wasn't it, about that we had with Nigel Clippens was on the CSG thing, and the challenges they're going to face going forward after things start to return back to normal. How they deal with the genie being out of the bottle with iFollow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Yeah. Final bit of news, Dan. It's just a little one here that obviously the Blue store is shut for the lockdown, so kind of expected. A little bit surprising though that they've shut down the online store as well at the same time. You'd have thought maybe someone would have been going in a couple of days a week to post stuff up.
I think that is just so they don't have to basically fanny on with having someone in and out of furlough, etc.
Yeah, and also. Maybe the sales aren't quite as good right now, possibly. That's one issue as well. But what I would expect is once things do return to a little bit of normal, there'll be a big sale in that shop as usual. It happens at this time of the year. There you go. Okay, so normally next up we would be reviewing the most recent match action, wouldn't we, Dan? But nothing to review this week. No games have happened. His last game was the Walsall game. So in lieu of any matches to review or preview, we've opened the floor up in this section for you to send in your questions. We asked on both Twitter and on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group if there's anything you wanted us to chat about Carl United past and present. We've got some great questions sent in. There's quite a few that are COVID based, so we're going to go on those first because I want to sort of get them out of the way because some of these we'll cover quite quickly, I think it's fair to say. So we'll try and keep these to minimum, get them boxed off. So first up, we've got a Jay Coleman on Twitter says, any advice for things to do in Harrogate at night during a lockdown, please? I wonder who that one come from. So poor old John, it can't be much fun being sat in your car, bloody nothing to do.
I think, judging from his comments on Twitter, he was happy not to be sharing with a certain Mr. James Phillips' music choice.
Yes.
I think we're being very diplomatic there.
Yeah, he's not a big fan of that. Well, John, my advice next time, if you're feeling hungry, and I know you're a man who likes a good chippy, like myself, drive up the road to Wetherby, go to the Wetherby Whaler, see if they're open, and grab yourself a nice bag of chips. I love the Wetherby Whaler, because I used to spend a lot of time down that way, because my uncle and auntie used to live in Wetherby, and near Wetherby later on. So we spend a lot of time down the way in the Wetherby Whaler. Top-notch chippy. That's my advice anyway.
I too have a tale about the Wetherby Whaler, but it's probably best not for this podcast.
That kind of tale then, right? We'll maybe leave it there.
Yeah.
Having a look, there's Brinham Rocks is nearby according to the TripAdvisor, John. And I'm guessing a set of rocks are going to be open. They're not going to be able to shut them, are they? So,
I wouldn't advise going to have a look when it's dark. So.
Maybe not, though. Maybe not. But that's the only thing that's probably going to be open, so there you go. But yeah, so yeah, there's not much for you to do, John. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully, by May next year, you might get to go to Harrogate for a game. You never know. Okay, let's get on to the first serious question then, I suppose. So Ryan Hogarth on Beaches and Fear Not group sent this one. So he said, do you think the announcement of testing twice a week might prompt us into making more signings than we might have done? Going to be a long season with players potentially missing for 10 days at a time. I think it's a fair point, this, actually. I think there's a good chance that maybe we might be looking at it and thinking we only maybe need one or two signings here and there. But this might be a little wake-up call to them to make them think, well, actually, maybe we need to get a few more bodies in to cover positions, possibly. What do you think, Dan?
I don't know, because Chris Beach seems as though he fairly knew what he needed. We've obviously got Zanzala in. There's rumours that Chedwin Scott is possibly close to coming in the building.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm led to believe he was potentially lined up before today's announcement, which has probably put it back a couple of weeks. This unfortunate break will actually work in the favour of George Tanner and Danny Devine.
Yeah,
we've got Dickinson just back from injury. We've got Charters and Dixon pushing on. I don't think it will affect our incomings as much as we think, personally.
Fair enough. I just think maybe they might look and think, if there's a risk of losing two players every couple of weeks for 2 weeks, do we need maybe to have just one or two more? You could
maybe bring an extra one in, couldn't you?
Yeah, maybe a youngster on loan.
Sort of a utility player or something,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, possibly. There you go. Okay, I think we've covered that one for you then, right? Next up, Dave Gales, someone I think we both know, on Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group. Do you think the season will get to the end? Bloody hell, Dave. Cheery question for us there.
How long's a piece of string, Dave?
I think it will. I think they'll complete the season.
Yeah, I think it'll complete. But would it be the biggest surprise if there was an extension? Probably not.
Yeah, this is the point I was going to touch on before. I can't see how they won't extend the season, though. I just can't. There's no way that they can keep this charade up of thinking, yes, we'll definitely finish for the 8th of May. No bother about that. We'll definitely finish for that day. It's not going to happen. It's not realistic. It's stupid that you're putting players under pressure. Yeah, I know there's the Euros coming, but you could easily put an extra 2 weeks onto our season, and then you could basically do the playoffs in 1 week. I can't see the issue with that, can you, personally?
The only thing that you would potentially have there is you might lose Wembley for the playoffs, because UEFA will want Wembley from a certain date if the Euros go ahead. But given that we have no fans going in, is that a major hassle?
No. Just put them at Old Trafford. just do that. That's the easiest solution, isn't it?
To be honest, you could. Well, I suppose England will be using St George's Park, but you know, there's plenty of places that will be able to become a bubble for playoff finals. So. Yeah,
just have it at Anfield, have it at Old Trafford, have it somewhere in the north, basically, instead of a big ground. I mean, I think somewhere at Anfield's probably better actually, because the capacity is a little bit smaller than Old Trafford. So you'd create probably a better atmosphere in that sense.
You're just saying that because you live in Liverpool. You're just saying that because you're living in Liverpool, and you're going to hire the world's highest cherry picker, aren't you? Over the back of the Anfield Road end.
Bloody hell, you need a bloody big cherry picker to go.
What time are we meeting for that? Anyways, what are we on about? We want playoffs. We're going up, champions.
No. Automatically, of course we are, of course.
Yeah, I won't be interested in Salford City versus Colchester United.
No, definitely not. So to answer your question there, Dave, yes, I think it will. I think it's just realistically the season's got to be extended. It just has to happen. Even if you just stick the championship season to what it is, they've got a bit more space. They might have to play through some international breaks possibly. That might be the way they'll do it. I don't know, but there you go. Yeah. Okay, next up, Andy Slee on Twitter has asked us thoughts on the new iFollow coverage with away comms only. Well, we only got to experience this once, and I don't know, were you working, Dan, possibly when this Walsall game was on, or do you catch the Walsall game?
Yes. So I just had it on radio quietly in the background at work.
So you had the interesting experience of listening to Lummy and James commentating on the video coverage of the game. So I'm guessing you have to knock off your notifications on your phone anyway when that happens, because you don't want to find out when the goals are going in. But I listened to it, and it was interesting because there's always a feeling that home commentators are quite biased and see things very differently to you. But they were very complimentary, the Walsall guys, in terms of how we played it. They said, we were decent, and it's just the way it's going to be for a while, isn't it? We just got to deal with it. I don't see a major issue, and if you get someone who's incredibly partisan, I don't think James and Lummy are too partisan, to be honest. I think, of course, they're going to be a bit more inclined towards the home team, but I think they're generally good. So
that's going to be a natural thing as well, isn't it? I mean, if you've got commentary teams who commentate on the same players every week, there's going to be a little bit of...
Of course, that's the way it's going to be. So I think generally it's fine. I've not seen any issues with it, to be honest. Next up is from Carlisle Blue Army Hub on Twitter, who says, would you rather we played despite COVID cases and risk getting more cases, or stop playing for 14 days and risk having a disadvantage if the season is called off? Well, to be honest, I don't think we would have a disadvantage at the moment, because of points per game, these other teams might catch up and overhaul us, but we'd probably still be ahead of them on points per game, simply because we've played less games and averaging just about 2 points a game, aren't we? So actually, it's not too bad. And the fact that if you lose those games, you put in our weaker squads. I can't see any advantage of carrying on playing. Let's have a guess here and say, let's say 11 players came back with positive cases today. We don't know. We have no idea how many have come back. But let's say 11 have come back. So you reduce down to a squad of 14. But then some of those players have mixed with those players who've got the positive test and could become positive a little bit down the road. It's not worth the risk, is it, Dan? To be honest.
There's also the thing of, yes, you could stop games for 2 weeks, but the players will still need to train for 2 weeks. So the players are going to be mixing in their team bubble anyway. So the only way you would get that would be to have a stoppage of, say, a month, where they have 2 weeks away, then they come back and train for 2 weeks prior to starting again.
Yeah.
So a 2 week stoppage, it's not really worth it.
Yeah.
You would need at least 4 weeks, in my opinion.
With this stoppage, we're going into that Newport game potentially with pretty much no training before it. That's a big risk as well, I think. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there.
It'd be interesting to see. It wouldn't be the biggest surprise if Newport potentially went as well.
Possibly. I mean, you're going to see more clubs as well pick up cases as well. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few weeks, I think it's fair to say. Okay, next up, Ian on Twitter. Got no surname here. So, do you think United will call off other games if we have more positive COVID tests? Will Beach stay at home in that respect regarding the high risk to his son Brandon? Well, I think Chris Beach has been quite smart for all this, and he knows all the risks, and obviously he's got a very personal, personal sort of connection to it also. I don't think there's any issue there. I think he's sticking to the rules. I think he'd want to protect his son, of course. In terms of calling on games, well, if there's more cases and it carries on, then we'll have to. We don't have any choice. It's just the way it is. But that sums that one up, doesn't it, Dan?
Yeah. I think Chris Beach basically knows what's best for him and his family's health.
Absolutely. Okay. Last up in the sort of COVID-related questions, at least, Lewis Ridley on Twitter. Do the recent call-offs due to weather and power cuts accentuate the importance of completing games so long as clubs can field a team rather than call them off when some of the players are unable to play due to COVID? I think it does. I think it's a problem that's brought on by the EFL's insistence that the season's going to finish on May the 8th. It depends how many players test positive, doesn't it, really? And as we said before, a lot of players are in bubbles, so you've got players living in club houses together. One of them gets it, then, well, the other 4 potentially living there might be affected too. So it's one of those ones, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, it's... I think it's basically a week-to-week basis at the moment, because this week it's Carlisle United, next week it could be, I don't know, Walsall, and a week later it could be Salford, and then another week later it could be 2 teams, and It's basically. I think it's just. It's a week-to-week existence for the league at the moment, and
you're going to find weeks, probably, aren't you, where teams are trying to fit fixtures in, and then suddenly at the weekend, two of the games that they're trying to maybe fit are called off of other clubs, and then the opponents of those clubs will go, well, actually, we've got a game to fit in here. Let's fit it in now. You might find that starts to happen, possibly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So games get played on Saturday. So you might find there's opportunities to fit games in here and there.
Well,
possibly.
I was going to say the Premier League did that this week when Tottenham ended up playing Fulham.
Yeah, so there's potential opportunities for that. There are opportunities to fit games in, but they're becoming less and less, aren't they?
We could see it where if one team has to call games off, who's to say if Mansfield for Saturday had a game spare and someone else was spare, it would make sense to play it then.
Yeah,
I think we will see that happen as the weeks go by.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at it, we're only going to get to the half-season point on the 30th of January. That's the kind of situation we're in here. And normally you get that on Boxing Day, so there's another full month missed out, and we still got stuff to pack in for the end of the season. So there you go. Okay, let's move off the COVID stuff now. Get on some other topics. I've put all the questions in that were submitted in, but we're not going to answer them all today because some of them need me and you to do a bit of research, I think, in terms of our picks, in terms of best teams and things like that. So there you go. Yeah. First up, CUFC stuff on Twitter sent this one in, and this is one that me and you've sort of discussed on WhatsApp, haven't we, recently? So it's quite a good point to raise. Actually, I'm quite glad it's been raised. So, Beach's recent comments on the training situation. So the club currently don't have anywhere suitable to train. The training pitch is constantly waterlogged and venues we'd usually borrow, e.g. Penrith Rugby Club, are unavailable during the lockdown. Do the club need to address this as soon as possible? So obviously the club, Beach revealed at the start of this week that the club have only been able to train in the Neil Sports Centre, and because of the size of the Sports Centre, they're having to go in smaller groups separately, aren't they? They can't all train together at the moment.
Which isn't ideal.
I mean, that's not ideal at all for a football league club, is it really?
No.
Yes, I think is the answer. It needs. I think it's something that not just the short term, but the long term needs addressed, doesn't it?
I'm assuming Crichton is unavailable for the same reasons that Penrith is.
Well, the youth team's game against who was it? Port Vale last week was called off, wasn't it? Yeah, a log pitch, and that's basically the pitch they use for training.
Yeah, so, and I think Crichton does get a bit boggy this time of year up there. Yeah,
it's the club basically needs to find somewhere, doesn't it? Some land that they can claim as their own, as their training ground, get it bought, and build a proper facility.
Have a grass pitch and a 4G pitch, but
easier said than done,
doesn't it?
Yeah, it's easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brunton Park, there's a pitch there, but it's only really useful in the summer months.
Yeah.
Once it gets to the winter, it gets so boggy because basically people say, "Oh, well, you do it up properly." And that the thing is, it's where the water table is. It's right next to the river, so if the river's high, it might not be flooding it, but below the ground, the water's coming up as well. And that affects the pitch, and obviously when it rains, it gets even worse. So it's just not a suitable surface. Crichton's much better. It's on higher ground, but obviously that's bad at the moment. But it's not ours either, is it? We're basically using two rugby clubs' grounds, an amateur rugby club, local rugby club, and a regional sort of national rugby club in Penrith.
Yeah.
4G facilities at Penrith, which is helpful, but the club needs basically its own facilities for this, doesn't it? I've always said if I won the Euro Millions and I was to buy Cal United, I wouldn't put money into transfers. I'd basically invest in facilities, improve Brunton Park, and most of all, get the club its own training ground. That's what it needs, basically. It needs a good facility, something they can hire out during the week to, fans to come and play on the 4G pitch and stuff like that. For midweek and things like that. I think we're both in agreement on that, isn't it? It needs to be sorted, really. Where you'd build it, I don't know. I don't know Carlisle that well. You know better than me, so you'd probably be able to suggest places, Dan. But
you would probably be looking at somewhere just off the motorway, wouldn't you, to be honest?
Well, would you potentially look at where the southern bypass is going to be? A lot of land going to be potentially built around there.
Yeah, that would be a potential.
Obviously, keeping it away from sort of the the Coldew and the Eden and places like that.
Yeah.
That's the difficult challenge.
Yes.
Yeah, in a total agreement on that one, CFC stuff. So good question. This one from Ross Parkinson. This is one I've discussed with other people as well recently. So it's, if you could take one player from another League Two club and put them in this team, who would it be? Because I was saying this today, I've not been that impressed by a lot of other. Maybe it's because our players are so good this season. There's no one I've sort of sat there and thought, oh, they're really good. I'd like them in the team, but I don't know.
Paul Mullin at Cambridge.
His goals have dried up a little bit, haven't they? And would he fit into this team?
A little bit, but he scores goals. And I know we don't have an out-and-out goal scorer the way we play, but he's still scoring. He's scored 2 in his last 4 games.
I think
he's scored 20 all season.
Yeah, I think if I was going to pick a couple out, I'd probably say Alfie May at Cheltenham. I was impressed with him.
Yeah, and anyone would take Ian Henderson from Salford, wouldn't they?
Yeah, although they're not making particularly good use of him, are they? Really, he's not scored that many goals.
No.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I think I'd put Alfie May in our team. Definitely, I think he'd be a good addition. And probably that lad who tore us apart for Tranmere for about 20 minutes in that game. He looked really good in that match. I don't know how good he's been generally, but he's one I'd have. But it's a tough one, that one, because we're not probably seeing as much maybe of League Two as we would normally.
Yeah. Well,
difficult one to judge.
We'll literally see highlights on Quest, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Next up, our old friend Greg Bullman on Twitter sent this one in. Greg says, do you think the season has been a lot more positive because of the negative supporters have not been in Brunton Park? And there's a dig at a lot of people from Greg. To be honest, I kind of agree with this. I think basically the fact that it's been generally, obviously there's not been fans there for long periods, but then when fans have gone to games, they've been so pleased to be at the matches, and we've been playing so well already. There's generally been a positive feeling, even when we, went 3-3 against Bolton. There was no negative feeling then, was there?
No. I mean, both times we were back for the first game. Everyone was just like, get in, we're going to watch a football match,
Yeah, so yes, Greg is the answer there for you. Nice quick one there for you. Next up is Fox Analytics. You should give him a follow on Twitter if you don't. You put some really interesting stuff up about the way United have been playing this season, a bit of an analysis on that stuff. His question is, what are your thoughts on Carlisle's use of long throws into the opposition penalty box? We've discussed it a few times, haven't we? We've
mentioned it before. It's obviously an excellent weapon to have, but we did notice a couple of teams who seem to be prepared for it, would be the correct term, I would say.
I think the problem is as well, it's a lot easier for us to do at Brunton Park because there's space around the pitch. And Coyote can get a nice long run up, and he can put his foot just onto the pitch because he's allowed to do that. Remember that? Whereas you look at some of the grounds we've been at, and he's having to take like a curved run up, isn't he? He's having to start like 30 yards further back, like 10 yards back down the pitch, and sort of curve his run up at the end and do it to throw it on the pitch, isn't he? So it's more challenging at those grounds. My feeling is it just fits in with the way we play. We're very direct, and we like getting the ball in the box and getting chances off. And we've seen like Joe Riley's goal against Stevenage. He doesn't always come from the first
flick. As long as we don't
flick.
become too over reliant on it, that's the key to it for me.
Yeah, and obviously the risk there is obviously if Coyote gets injured, then what do we do? I know we've got Alessandro to take them, but not quite as good as Coyotes throw, are they? So I think it's a good weapon. I don't have any major issue with it, and some opposition managers may bleat on about it, mentioning no names. You never. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a perfectly legitimate weapon to use on the football pitch. So there you go. Next up, Paul Slate on Be Just and Fear Not. He said, thinking about previous comments about squad depth, let's go back to the days of one sub, e.g. the 1980s. He was often more of a utility player or a general midfielder who could play various positions. Obviously, Jeff Thorpe, obviously that was in the 90s though. Or even someone, usually a striker, who could change the game like Janssen in the late 90s. Obviously, we had 3 subs then, but obviously sometimes one would be a goalist. You more or less had 2. If you could only have one sub now, who in this squad would be the ideal choice? This is a great question, this.
That's a great question. If you're looking for someone who can defensively, I would probably suggest Joe Riley, because we know he can play right back, left back, central midfield, and he knows how to score a goal after his cracking volley.
Well, he can play on the wing, can't he? As well, so, I mean, it's a front three as well. I think that's not a bad shout. But I mean, I'm just having a quick look through the squad now.
I would also suggest, obviously, I would want to take him out the first 11, but Alessandra's got the brain to cover several positions. Yeah. Obviously, we use him at his most effective, but I think he would slot in anywhere across the midfield or up front if he needed to do a job.
Yeah, I think obviously Danny Devine possibly as well. He can play across the midfield and he can play probably across the defence, you'd imagine, as well. So they're probably the ones, Joe Riley, Devine and Alessandra, the three you'd pick from, depending on what sort of game you're going into. But it's an interesting question.
John Mellish is another now. He's the accomplished attacking midfield maestro that he is. You know.
He can play left back, and I still think he probably could play centre back if you coached out the old bringing the ball out a bit too much out of him. But there you go. It's an interesting question, that one. It'd be interesting to see how managers would cope if they went back to the days of having one sub or just 3 subs even. How would you manage that? Because you look back to the 90s and sometimes we'd have, like I said, you'd have a Jansen on there, but then you'd maybe have a Tony Hopper as the other sub. Knowing that Hopper could play pretty much across the midfield and across the back four as well. So, really interesting question, that. Next up, Paul Mallison, again on Beaches and Fennock Group, says, how does the current team compare with the 94-95 side? Mountfield and Walling or Bennett and Hayden, which is better? This is a tough question, this one, isn't it?
I think you've got to go with Mountfield and Walling purely on the fact that we absolutely walked that league. Mountfield was obviously a class act coming towards the end of his career. Dino's a cult legend. And Hayden and Bennett have the potential, but I don't think they'll quite hit the heights of those two. That's my opinion. It's
a different era as well, isn't it? That's the key thing as well.
True, yeah.
The days of someone like Dean Walling, if he had a season like he had back then now, you'd have championship clubs coming in for him probably in the summer. We're probably going to have clubs sniffing around Hayden come this summer. It's just inevitable because he's playing so well. And Bennett similar. I think I'd agree. I think Mountfield and Walling for me are better just at the moment. But I mean, the way Hayden and Bennett are playing has been superb so far this season. In terms of the overall team, it's a different era, isn't it? That's the thing. The way football's played now is a lot different. Players are a lot fitter than they used to be back then. Technically a lot better. I genuinely think some of the poorer teams we've had in the last 10, 15 years would probably give that 94-95 side a good game. But go on, sorry.
One thing with a 94-95 team, if it went a goal down, you weren't bothered in the slightest because you just thought, we'll get at least a draw. We're going to score today.
And we were direct side back then as well.
We would win. Well,
fucking long to Reeves.
People don't realise how direct we were under Mick Wadsworth that season.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some of the likes of Curry's and Thomas's goals sort of overshone the fact that it was Route 1 to get the ball to them.
Yeah, get it up to Reeves. He'd basically hold on to it, get into the box and get a shot away or get someone up there with him. Like I said, obviously, in terms of the whole saying that, the later sides would easily be 94-95, doesn't account for the fact that 94-95 sides, if you gave them the sort of training and diet and stuff like that you get now, would be much better sides as well. So you've got to account for that. But there you go.
I mean, I sorry, just quickly on that, I always say I think 96-97 would hammer 94-95.
Yeah, interesting, that one. Interesting. I'm not. A lot of people say we played better football under Mervyn Day than we did under
for me,
under Wadsworth, and some people even argue that the football we played under Wilkes and Halpin was a step up as well, quite often at times. Okay, we're a bit tight for time today, Dan, aren't we? So I think what we'll do is we're not going to cover the last few questions. There's 4 more questions left. What we'll do is we'll carry them over to the next episode and we'll cover a few more in that one. So thanks everyone for sending the questions, and we really do appreciate it. It's been interesting to chat through a few of those. If you've got any more, send them in for the next episode because we're not going to have any games to cover, so might as well. Final bit up here, Dan. The X-Files. I think you were just going to quickly round these bits up, weren't you? There's not much to cover this week.
Yeah, not too many goals at the weekend, but Yates and Medine both scored again for Blackpool in their excellent FA Cup win over West Brom. They're starting to notch 1 or 2 goals, aren't they?
Ashton Ellison got one as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I've got a couple of former loanee Max Amer scored.
Yeah.
Sean Brisley scored for Port Vale, is that now, isn't he?
Blimey.
Yeah, Ashley Addison rightfully took the some of the headlines for Crawley in their fantastic win over Leeds. I had this game on the radio driving home from work, and Addison was compared to a lower league Jamie Vardy, no less.
Yeah, interesting.
And then midweek, we got an absolute belter. Arthur Ganawa scored for Bolton.
Fantastic.
And then not really an ex-player, but he's an ex-trialist, one that I still say we should have signed to this day. Lawrence Shankland scored an absolute belter.
Unbelievable goal, this, wasn't it? Unbelievable.
It is worth searching on Twitter or YouTube because he bangs it in from about 50-odd yards, and he means it as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He really does. Just a couple other little bits. Salford have released former loanee Martin Smith. I think he only played once or twice for us, didn't he, when we had him from Sunderland. And one of the more well-publicised ones, looks like Jared Branthwaite is going to Blackburn on loan for the season, which is probably a perfect move for him. Good, solid move. I know Blackburn have got 2 or 3 centre-backs out, so he's likely to play. And whereas last season Everton had no centre-backs, they've actually, some weeks have been playing forward across the back with Mina, Keane, Godfrey and Holgate. So, some football will do. And one last one that you highlighted. Bohemians are looking to snatch Bastian Heading from Linfield ahead of St Patrick's.
Yeah, he's doing a little tour of Ireland, isn't he? He's notching up the clubs over the Irish Sea. There you go. Thanks a lot, Dan. Then that's all the X-Files stuff done. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me once again. If anyone hasn't noticed, you'll notice the point where Dan's laptop battery died during this episode.
I'll have to go and grab some AirPods and switch onto my phone to recording. So if the quality isn't as good for the last 5 minutes, I send my apologies. What we are going to do, though, which I tweeted about on our account earlier, obviously we're not going to have any football for a while, so we've done the questions today. We're probably looking at getting a mid-season review in next week while there's no matches. The league table's never going to have all teams on 23 games at the same time. That's just not happening. So it's as good a time as any with no Carlisle action for us to have a look back. And we might try and see if we can get anyone on to come and have a chat with us about it.
And you know what? We're going to finally get that special done, aren't we? It's going to happen.
Yeah, we'll get that special done at some point.
So, as usual, thank you everyone for listening. If you've got any comments or feedback, anything you'd like to discuss, please send them in via Twitter to @BruntonBugle or by email to bruntonbugle@gmail.com. If you haven't ever done so already, please remember you can subscribe to the podcast via all good podcast apps, including Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Please do give us a review as well. We do appreciate it. 5 stars is always nice if you can. Very quick roundup of the world map of listeners, Dan, because we have got a couple of new countries in there. Brazil and Romania are our 2 new countries.
Well, it was interesting because when I was walking up Botchergate today, I noticed a Brazilian shop on Botchergate. Apparently there's a small community of Brazilians in the town these days. Maybe one of them has saw how good we are and mentioned it to a relative back home.
Well, there you go. You never know.
Probably not.
Right. Anyway,
no, stop. I know of a Carlisle fan who's in Brazil at the moment.
Well, there you go.
Yes, I do. A friend who's a regular listener mentioned that his friend, who I know his face, is in Brazil. So I'm going to guess it's you. And if it is, give us a shout on social media.
Yep, definitely. We'll give you a shout on the podcast as well. That's it then, Dan.
What did you say the other one was? Sorry, Romania?
Romania, yes. God knows who that is, but there you go.
Absolutely no idea.
There you go. Right, Dan, thanks once again for joining me. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back sometime next week to do, like I said, the half-season roundup, and we'll get a special recorded. We promise you we'll get that done next week.
Yeah, why not? We'll spoil you.
Cool. Right, thanks everyone for listening, as usual, and once again, up the Blues.
Up the Blues.